Now, Podcast One brings you Spike's Car Radio, a downloadable cars and coffee hosted by writer, comedian, and automotive enthusiast Spike Ferriston. Now, here's Spike.
You can't just push the car hard the whole way, right?
That's right. You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you. If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is. Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes. Every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it?
I think so.
Most people can't. Most people don't even know it's out there, but it is. It's there.
Well, that, of course, was Ford versus Ferrari. Some exclusive content here on Spike's Car Radio from the folks at Ford versus Ferrari, which opens this Friday, the 15th. And you guys and you girls are going to go see it because this movie is absolutely fantastic. If you are the car person in your life and you are dating or married to someone who's not, they're going to enjoy it too. I brought my wife to the screening. We loved it. She loved it more than me. It's really fantastic. You car dudes will notice a few things that you're like, well, that's not exactly how it was, or that might be a replica or whatnot. But try not to focus on that because everywhere on the screen there is just beautiful stuff to look at. I was really impressed with the movie. And I loved it, really. I'm giving it 100% tomato. And not just that. Today, we have James Mangold, the director, Matt Damon, and Christian Bale. We were invited, and I was super excited to get this interview for you guys to their press event at the Peterson Auto Museum, where we're going to go in a minute. It was quite a setup they had going on there. Everybody was kind of given, little spurts of time with the guys or with the director, and they were gracious enough to give us, I think, a good space of time for everyone. We had about, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes with Christian Bale and Matt Damon, and maybe about the same with the director. So, I know you would want this to be longer. I'm going to try to get everybody back in here. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen again. But just know that's the only amount of time I had with these guys. Before we continue on, though, when you see this movie, you're going to want Matt Damon's sunglasses. The Carroll Shelby sunglasses, you were going to want them. It was kind of tough to track down, and I eventually had to go to Matt himself because I forgot to ask him in the show. They are Entourage of 7 brand, an LA brand, and they're Beacon. They're called the Entourage of 7 Beacon. If you go to my Instagram story, you'll see that there's a store, the Good Sea Company in Venice, and a guy named Reza. He knows that our listeners, you guys, are going to want these things. He's hooked you up. He's ordered about 100 pair of these things, and that's where you can find them. Other than that, I don't know where you're going to get them in the world. It's not going to work. In any case, let's go to the Peterson Auto Museum, and let's start with the big stars, Matt Damon and Christian Bale, both super guys, both obviously incredible actors. Christian surprised me. Listen for the story about him riding motorcycles out in Gorman. It's hilarious. He slices his finger off. And, Damon, how he approaches Carroll Shelby and inhabits that character is really well done. So let's go off to the Peterson Museum. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview.
You're listening to Spike's Car Radio.
Where would you like us to
That's
sit?
fine, guys. You can sit down right there.
So you used to write for Seinfeld?
Let's just start. Are we rolling? Yeah, I did.
You know Alec and Jeff, then?
I do very well.
Yeah, all right. Those are my buddies.
But I'm realizing you don't remember when we first met because Jeff introduced us.
Oh, where?
Early on when you had just moved. Just stay close to the mic on these mics.
Oh, yeah.
They're a little loose. at a bar in Hollywood when you first moved to L.A.
Yeah. So
Jeff Schaefer said, "This is Matt Damon. He just moved here. He wants to be an actor." And I went, "Oh, right. Oh, nice to meet you, Matt. Good luck with that."
was Ben there that night?
He was not. He was not. But you were this wiry little actor guy, and then I went. It's one of my biggest regrets that I did not pursue that friendship because now look, why didn't I believe in people? But there it goes. How are you guys?
Great.
Good, thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Guy, the movie is fantastic.
Thank you.
It's really, really thrilling from top to bottom.
Thanks.
Are you guys doing press today? What is it? What is this like? Is this a big press day for you? Do they have you?
Yeah, we're just sitting here in the car museum.
It's different from other press days in that we're in a car museum, so that's cool. And also the podcast thing is relatively new, where you can actually have like a longer conversation with somebody. So that's actually nice.
So are you guys? I think my listeners want to know more than anything. Are you car guys originally, or are you character guys on this? What really, and you can start with you, Christian. What attracted you to this project?
I grew up watching Formula One. Loved that. One time I went to Brands Hatch with my dad. Loved it. It was with Alan Prost and Senna and Niki Lauda and whatnot, and that was absolutely glorious. But I've never known how to work on a car or do anything with it particularly, so I wouldn't consider myself a car guy. But this was just a hell of a story. It's an amazing story about these very strong characters, colourful characters in the racing world, but about this sort of triumph of misfits and their friendship, but told at 230 miles an hour. Yeah.
You were an avid motorcyclist, though, weren't you, when you were younger?
Yes.
And used to race? And
let's not say race. I would take it to the track, And so you do race against other people who are out there, but it wasn't anything official.
But you had a lot of accidents when you were doing that.
I did have a few, so I've been banned from doing it.
Well, what kind of racing accidents on a motorcycle?
Yeah, high sides and stuff and all that. And, I've got a fair amount of metal in my body. Yeah.
Wow. Matt? You and I.
How much metal have you got?
Yeah, what do you got?
How many metal detectors do you set off?
I do
Where
not
in your
set off
body?
the metal.
One, actually, for me. Only in the Dominican Republic. They've got the most sensitive metal detectors of any airports there,
Really?
because that's the only place that I regularly set off the metal detector.
What part of you is metal? Is a robot? Like, what do you? What do you
It's suddenly
say?
going Terminator, isn't it? Here, it's, in one of my knees, and then got a big old. It looks like a beer opener inside of here,
Right.
Wrist, and then about 25
God, look
screws
at
up and
that
down
scar.
here, and then no bone here. This is all titanium.
Wow. You can hear him okay on that mic? You got him in there good? That's impressive. I like that.
No, I'm not sure that is impressive. Is it really?
It is that you were.
Doesn't it show that my enthusiasm completely outweighed my skill?
No, because
there,
to be a racer, you have to be an assassin. You have to be out of your mind. And Ken Miles was kind of that guy, right?
Yes.
And, in some ways, it was... when were you racing? As a teenager?
Well, again, let me not say racing. I would go to the track,
Right.
and we would all just go nuts for a day, or I'd go to a racing school. But it wasn't any official races. We would be against each other, yes. But that was up until I had my accident that when my family banned me finally was in 2012.
And is that where you lost a piece of your finger and they had to put it back on?
No, that was dirt biking up at Gorman. That was quite good.
That was Gorman?
That was up at Gorman, yeah.
Wow.
And I just hadn't fixed an old accident on the bike which had sharpened a piece of metal, and it ended up just slicing my finger off. But so then when I came to take the glove off, you sort of feel your finger, and my finger just went with the glove.
Oh, come on.
And then, but not too. And then I put it back. And then what I did, and there's blood running down. And then I managed to get my glove off, and I stupidly would often just go by myself. But it was a very cold day, so I just balanced the fingertip on the end of my finger, put it out of the car window because I thought that's the coldest air.
Right.
And then just raced like that to the
and it didn't
clinic.
blow away.
And it was hanging on by literally one nerve that it would kind of flop off and be hanging down there like that.
on,
But it was
dude.
enough that I've still got some feeling in there.
Wow.
A little bit. But that was a dirt biking.
No, you didn't even put a little tape on it, or it just blew up. All right, well, Matt, you're a Massachusetts guy. You grew up in Cambridge, right?
Yep.
So you're, like me, kind of around American muscle cars growing up. What was the stuff you were attracted to when you were a kid, when you were young, the cars?
Man, I wasn't really a car guy at all. I mean, I grew up taking the subway and the bus, and and you didn't really need a driver's license in my neighborhood.
Right.
Everything you could kind of get to some other way. So yeah, I wasn't into the kind of car culture.
And what do you guys drive now?
I've got a pickup truck.
Pickup truck? What kind of pickup truck?
Tacoma. 2003.
And your electric car, I'd guess.
I had a Tesla.
There you go.
Look, I'm waiting for, I think it's Bollinger, are coming out with some very nice-looking electric pickup trucks. I'm waiting for one of those. Yeah. As soon as somebody comes out with a good electric pickup truck, I'll get it.
Well, they're here. They're going to be at the LA Auto Show. They've been sending me emails
I've put in my order to them online.
Yeah, you should go have a look at it. It's a pretty interesting looking vehicle.
I love the look of it. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the movie, guys. The movie is incredible. It's really great. What I loved about it, and I was just telling James, is my wife loved it. She is a political person. She's not about cars. Her favorite thing is a Prius, right? Couldn't even tell you who makes it, right? But she was on the edge of her seat for the whole film. And both you guys... let me start with you, Matt. Carroll Shelby. These are two characters and two human beings. Really interesting guys, Ken Miles, Carroll Shelby, but they're dead. How do you approach that character and playing him with accuracy?
That was
Carroll
hilarious.
Shelby.
Interesting guys, but they're dead.
They're dead. You can't. Well, you can't meet with them. You can't sit down with them and go, let's talk, and kind of get a sense of their mannerisms and how they talk and the little things that actors, love to bring to a part.
Yeah.
Where do you find that?
Well, luckily for me, Carroll wasn't afraid of a microphone, so there's a lot of existing footage and documentaries about him and a lot of stuff. So that was kind of easy to look at, and there are a lot of people out here who knew him. I mean, he was very kind of a larger than life guy, and so I talked to people who knew him, and again, and it's a 2-hour movie, so you're never. It's not, I'm not going to come and do a really an imitation of Carroll Shelby. It's like you're trying to tell this story, and in fact it's such a big story that it was around for a long time in different kind of iterations, and it wasn't until it really got distilled down to just these two Shelby and Miles that it was too kind of unwieldy before that. So and Christian, in talking to Ken's son Peter, like. You're not going to make capture an entire person's life in a 2-hour movie. Nobody's life could be captured that way. So it's this story. It's servicing this story as best we can.
And who gets to this project first? Which one of you guys?
I read it back in 2011, but that was before Jim Mangold was on board, and then, like Matt said, it was more of an ensemble piece back then. But still, Butterworth had written it. It was still fantastic, but then nobody was funding it until Jim distilled it down to the relationship between Shelby and Miles. And just going back also to your wife liking it, that is the ultimate compliment. That is fantastic, because it is a human story about these fascinating, entertaining, larger-than-life characters, colourful characters, and it reminds me of, I took my wife to see the documentary Senna, and I saw Senna race. I was obsessed with him. I saw on TV when he tragically died. My wife knew nothing about him, but she was in tears and just adored the film. So that was always what I felt like. That's the goal, to get people who don't give a damn about racing to really care about this.
And it definitely is that. I was telling James, I could not believe the running time was 2:20. I usually get upset at anything over 2 hours. Yeah. I would have gone 90 minutes just because of how exciting the movie is and the way it's cut and the way it's put together.
You've always got to ignore the running time, because a bad film, 90 minutes is like being on a treadmill. It's just an eternity, completely.
Right.
But a good film, you can sit there for 3.5 hours and feel like that just flew by.
What did you guys have to do to prepare for the movie? Did they send you to racing school?
I got to do that.
Yeah, Christian did. This is after Shelby's racing career, right? It's a big moment in his life, because he's pivoting from one career to the next.
So, but you got to do racing school and you didn't. Now, why didn't you? Because you do a lot of driving, right? You have that opening sequence in the
very little, like it's
in
a
the Speedster.
20-second sequence at the beginning. Yeah,
and then you drove the Shelby on Leno's show. I watched that.
I did. Yeah, I did.
It looked like you were having trouble with that.
Was it a Cobra?
It was a Cobra.
It's the same one I drove in the film. But
right.
No, the first time I pulled up, I scared him. He jumped because what happened was the seat wasn't secured.
Oh, so you were moving in the seat as you were braking?
No, what happened was I literally hit the gas, and the seat flew back like that. So
Yes.
it was like, oh my God. So I was like, I got to get on the brake. I got to get back to the brake. It was funny.
Did you actually get behind the wheel of these Super Performance Ford GTs?
Loved them.
And
those
what were they like
great.
to
Those
drive?
Super Performance ones
Tell
are
everybody
really
what those
fantastic.
are like to
We
drive.
couldn't afford to have a lot of those
Right.
on, so we had other makers as well, which was super twitchy. But those ones are beautifully done. I have to say my favourite car to drive was the Cobra. Because Matt was really good in that as well. And we would go to Willow Springs and just be sliding those around the corner, but in a really predictable, lovely way.
Yeah.
The GT40s were so twitchy. But fun, But I spun that out a number of times coming around corners. Yeah, you just overcook it just to a couple of millimeters too much.
Right.
It is like a ballet with the pedal. And you do point your foot in that way, so you can just do tiny increments. But man, that thing was just ready to spin out at any second.
It sounds like this film woke up the racer in you. It sounds like you sound like a guy who's about to start racing.
I have spoken with Robert Nagel, who was the stunt coordinator on this. I have said to him, you know what, we had some good times here, didn't we? And he used to race professionally. And I have said to him, let's start thinking about maybe at some point, him and I getting together and seeing if we could actually start having some fun at the track with this. But we haven't started doing that yet.
What kind of cars would you race?
Well, on the Bondurant school, we ended up with in an open wheeler. And it doesn't sound very impressive, but it was like Formula Mazda, right? They are so much fun.
Yes, they are.
So much fun.
You feel the air in your face.
And I would love to just experience that a bit more. And I've also had so much fun just going around in a Mazda Miata.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
I know
the most raced car in the world,
sounds
the
like
Mazda
a
Miata.
joke for people who haven't been in them, but they're great, and the gear shifting is wonderful in it, and it's a great way to start and get used to it.
A lot of the engines in the kit cars were Miatas.
What's that?
A lot of the engines that we were racing at, were Miatas.
Wow. The Miata is the most raced car in the world. It's
Is it
the
really?
car because they're affordable and they're easy to
That's
modify.
the point. Yeah, you want to start with something that's affordable.
Right.
That, if you wreck it, you don't have to move out of your house or whatever.
Right.
And then see if you've got what it takes to maybe start to stretch to something else.
This is really exciting.
But for me, it would just be a fun hobby, if that ever comes. But I'm still
How are we
begging my
gonna
family
get
to let me
him
get on a
convinced?
motorcycle again.
How are we going to get him convinced that this is fun?
Oh, it's fun. No, don't get me wrong. I have fun driving.
He's good. We jumped in the car in one scene, and I don't know if that is actually the one that they end up using in the film, but he drifted thing at that.
It's so easy to drift those Cobras though, because they're so light. It's really it's easier to drift them than it is to not, because keeping those rear wheels on the ground is tough.
Right, but you're Jason Bourne. I mean, certainly you've done a lot.
Because you are Jason Bourne.
You are him. You've done a lot of training, right? You've done a lot of this stuff.
Yes, a lot of driving. Like we get spoiled because they'll put you on an old airfield that's wet down and give you 3 cars, and and it's like the stunt coordinator just is like, okay, guys, I'm leaving, and he leaves you with the stunt guys, and it's a lot of fun.
Was there anybody who was around back in the day that was part of this film? That's
Charlie Agapiu, he was one of the pit crew. He was around, knew Ken, knew Shelby really well.
Charlie
was
was really
whole
helpful.
team. Charlie is one of the characters. He was there a lot. We had some of the sons, Gurney's boy. We had actually quite a few family members were around of the actual races.
Oh, tell them about the one shot at the beginning of Le Mans.
There's a shot at the beginning of Le Mans where we're, that old quaint, lovely thing where they start and they have to run across.
Right.
And we're looking at these black and white photographs, and I'm going, all right, there's me, there's Ken, and then here's your dad. It was his actual dad, and here's your dad, and we're all just getting goosebumps going, my God, this is a wonderful moment.
So the sons were playing their dads.
Kind of revisiting us, and us all running off, trying to replicate exactly what their dads did. And that was so authentic, and as authentic as you can possibly get, isn't it?
That's really, really incredible. One of my favorite moments, Matt, is when you say a Porsche as Carroll Shelby. You go, it's the guy who runs Porsche, which is not how...
Compared to Porsche,
you
mean. Right.
Porsche is the family name,
right.
But you see the authenticity that Matt is bringing to this guy from Texas, this character who would not know that, who would say, that's the guy who runs Porsche.
Or knows it, but doesn't want to say that, doesn't
maybe. Did you do that on purpose, or was that in the script?
No, I just did. That's I thought that's how he said Porsche.
Okay, you guys, I don't know. I've been in entertainment and seen a lot of movies. I absolutely lost my mind when I saw this movie. It hits my sweet spot. Entertainment, great acting, great writing, great filmmaking. What you guys brought to these characters, what I learned about the Ford versus Ferrari story. There's a scene where Enzo Ferrari is there and he's got lint on his jacket. I mean, what James brought in, the set dressing, it's a knockout of a movie.
Thanks.
And my only hope, and I know you guys are in the same category, for an Oscar, right? Why does that?
For us, honestly, I think I'll speak for both of us. At our age, at this stage of our career, we just want people to see the movie.
Yeah.
We really, really want people to see it, and it's great when it turns out well, and this one turned out well, and I just hope it finds an audience.
It's not Bale versus Damon after this. You guys don't suddenly stop talking to each other and go out there and
we'll have a nice, sad, middle-aged, pathetic knockdown like we do in the film.
My dream is you both get an Oscar. Just because you made a night of my life so wonderful watching a movie, and that's hard to do. And the Spikes Car Radio listeners, thank you guys for coming on.
Appreciate it.
You guys have to check this movie out. You have to go see it. It's in theaters November 15th, Ford versus Ferrari, Matt Damon, Christian Bale. Guys, come back anytime.
Thanks so much,
obviously.
man.
And thanks for visiting with us. We'll be
Cheers.
right back. All right. Do you guys need to watch? It's getting to be the holidays. I don't have to remind you. You need to go to my favorite watch website, Crown and Caliber. Maybe you want to sell a watch and buy another watch. Maybe you want to sell 3 watches and buy nothing. Crown and Caliber is going to help you. I use them all the time. They have huge brands: Rolex, Breitling, Omega, Tag Heuer, Patek Philippe. Huge selection of watches, 3,000 plus watches from 40 of the top luxury brands. It's risk-free, free shipping, free returns, 1-year warranty. They've been helping people for a very long. Check their Google rating. 4.8 out of 5. That's only a 0.2 of disgruntled people. The rest, overwhelmingly happy. Count me in that column for happy folks. They have an in-house team of Swiss-certified watchmakers as well as technicians and refinishers. In case your watch isn't where you want it to be before you sell it, they'll get it the last mile. They've been featured in Esquire, Men's Journal, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and, of course, Spike's Car Radio. And right now, they're giving away an Omega Speedmaster watch. How about that? Maybe you're not even buying, you're not selling. Maybe you just want a free watch. Well, go to my custom URL, crownandcaliber.com/Spike. That's crownandcaliber.com/Spike. It ends on November 17th, 2019, so this is the last chance I think you have. And if you're just in the mood to buy a watch, use the promo code that I've got for you guys, Radio150, for $150 off any purchase of $2,000 or more. There you go, Radio150, my friends at crownandcaliber.com. So, how do you know your motor oil is good enough to protect your engine? Well, you don't. That's the answer to that question. But one brand does, because they literally go the extra mile to test everything. I'm talking about Valvoline, our friends Valvoline, who make stickers. That's right, Valvoline is the only motor oil brand in the world with an engine lab completely dedicated to testing motor oil. They take their products, and their competitors' products, I might add, and run them through the gauntlet. I'm talking thousands and thousands of miles. Then their engineers and technicians take those engines apart piece by piece to evaluate exactly what happened. Was there carbon buildup? How did the seals hold up? Did the engine perform like it was supposed to? And most importantly, were the critical engine components protected? So when Valvoline is formulating motor oil for your engine, they know exactly how it performs and what protects it best, because they've seen the results firsthand. It's why I trust Valvoline in my car, and it's why Valvoline has been trusted for more than 150 years. 150 years. Head over to Valvoline.com/Spike to see what product is right for your engine.
You're listening to Spike's Car Radio.
Have a seat. We'll get you in and out of here real fast.
Oh.
Need a break? Are you ready?
No. You're my first. I don't need any kind of break.
I'm your first.
I'm all good.
He's all good. We're listening.
Testing, 1, 2. You all good?
That's
Looks good.
There. Yeah, just speak close to the mic like that. There you go.
got
right
it.
in there. I like that he did a mic test. I like to leave all this stuff in, by the way.
The mic test.
Yeah, I'm going to leave all of that in.
All of it. Leave it all in. I'm a filmmaker. We know. I know what sound guys do.
This is James Mangold, the director of Ford versus Ferrari. Is it Ford v Ferrari or Ford versus Ferrari?
I call it Ford v Ferrari, but you could say versus.
This movie
Godzilla versus Megalon.
This movie is so great.
Thank you.
I went to a screening. I lost my mind. You know, what was impressive to me was I brought my wife, who's a petite little blonde, who's into politics, and she loved it more than I did. Which is quite an accomplishment for you. How did you pull that off?
She's not like a motorsports person.
Not in any way.
Right.
Not in any way. Her
Neither
favorite
am I,
car,
to be honest.
Right. I know that about you. I think, and it's been said, and I love this, that it's a thinking man's Fast and the Furious.
I'll take that. I think that.
How did you accomplish that?
Well, I think the goal of the film on a broad level, I say I'm not into motorsports. I love cars. I just am not a big follower. I've never been a big follower. It wasn't what drew me into the movie. But what I did love about this story as we began to work on the script a few years ago was the idea of this time in America and in racing when although the movie is very much about corporate interference in sports, it's also a time when it was just that was happening for the first time, that the world of sports was still a kind of wonderful menagerie of mavericks, motor racing, kind of hot rodders, engineers, kind of geniuses, and daredevils, kind of this wonderful kind of collection of characters. And certainly Enzo Ferrari and Henry Ford II were each different characters, legacy, running a corporation that makes cars, for working men and women and that are affordable. And another guy who was a maverick who created his own company who makes unaffordable cars for no men and women. For basically too fancy for almost anyone. When Enzo first was in these days making Ferraris, there weren't Ferrari dealerships in big towns. Meaning this was really exclusively a racing machine.
You said not being a car guy, though, that it gave you a unique perspective.
Well,
on making
I love the characters.
Movie.
I love the characters, and so the reason I think your wife liked it as well is that I think that the investment in the movie is in the unique people that populate the film and the dynamic. Like when you say your wife likes politics, like there's a lot of interesting ways the movie asks a lot of questions that are more complicated than just who's going to win this race. And I think that that's part of what I hope involves people. And the other thing that was my own goals, I grew up going to the movies with my dad, and we would see really cool films, entertaining films with action, whether Dirty Harry films or the great, like the Gauntlet Clint Eastwood movies and I'm like, what happened to these movies that were for grown-ups? They were, essentially the action film has become kind of the province of the 13-year-old boy.
Right, exactly.
And that the entire world of tentpole movies is kind of oriented around appealing to teenage boys.
Well, does that make it hard to make this film?
Yes, but it was the goal of this film. What was attractive to me was making a film that I saw when I was a kid, where the film I had to grow a little into the movie. The movie didn't just speak to me on the most YouTube-y of levels,
right.
That was something that's tricky. Yes, getting financed today because you have a movie like this it's not just that it's oriented toward adults, but that it doesn't feature the Wolverine or Spider-Man or Luke Skywalker. So there isn't some built-in audience that the studio knows is going to pay for the picture.
Right, and you have to make money on these things or we know you get thrown into director jail. So,
yes. That's another reason I identified, because while directors and writers don't often die on the job, I identified with the career death that race car drivers experience if they can't put victories together.
So what kind of gamble does and Fox made the film, right?
Yes.
What kind of gamble did
they? And while we were making it, Fox was bought by Disney.
Disney, right?
Right. So
it
was even kind of like the movie in the sense that the ground was changing underneath you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Does Iger call you up in the middle of this process and go, "Look, buddy, you've seen what we're doing, and I've been looking at what's going over here at Fox, and I'm not too happy with last summer. Are you going to make sure you deliver?"
I was way done by whatever no. The truth is, Bob Iger does not make calls like you're describing. That sounds more like Fred Flintstone. But the reality is that they love the movie, so it was a very easy transition for me. And I think that what I was out to make was, when Disney bought Fox, I think they were very much out for the kind of picture that Disney makes plenty of family movies oriented toward kids. So the idea of having adult fare and having something more sophisticated yet also appealing and entertaining, meaning I'm not out to hit my audience in the head with a hammer.
Right.
So that was really interesting to them, and I think that audiences will decide how the movie came out.
The movie's amazing.
Everyone,
you have to see the movie. It's like Cat.
And it's also, can I add that the one thing I feel like people think they know, if you don't know the history of this race and this rivalry and these characters, you may think you know what's going to happen in the movie. Just another one of those movies where ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba. But that's not exactly what happens in the movie.
Right.
So it's like part of what makes the movie interesting, and the reason I made it is what happens isn't kind of the standard cliche set of events that you walk in expecting.
Right. But we know who wins in the end, right? You didn't change that.
Well, you saw the movie, buddy.
I'm joking. All right, let's get into the good stuff. The good stuff. All right. I have so many questions. Here's what I loved right off the top. 10 minutes in, I saw 3 Porsche Speedsters from the late 50s, a country Squire, and a ton of beautiful cars.
Yeah.
Later when we're visiting the Ferrari factory, I'm looking at some very, very valuable vintage Ferraris that I know. I know the cars and some of the guys who own them, and I stopped counting at the value of $100 million. I was like, there was at least $100 million worth of vintage Ferraris.
Which is more than the film cost.
Right.
So on that set that day, we had one of the owners drove the car there on L.A. surface streets.
But how do you get? Well, that was probably Bruce Meyer from the Peterson Museum, the silver 250 short wheelbase. He drives that car. How do you, as a director, reach out to those guys, to the Ferrari community?
Honestly, I wouldn't know where to begin. But I hire good people who are, as I'm producer also on the film, so I hire people who are very smart about wrangling cars and know the car world. And
but most guys don't lend their cars to a production, right?
And no one would. Well, in this case, it's just sitting there, meaning that we didn't take Bruce's car, for instance, and put it on the track at Willow Springs. That would have been, I think we would have had an issue.
Yes.
But the reality is that for most owners, I think it's kind of a thrill and a value added for their own car to make it into a major motion picture, blah, blah, blah. But
it's thrilling when you see it on screen.
Right. So it's just a matter of do we manage to nick or scratch it while it's sitting there and we're moving the camera around? Does the Steadicam operator bump into it and cause a liability insurance
And you
issue?
have that insured. You're the producer. You have to have a lot of insurance,
We have to
right?
be insured. We have to be insured.
Because if that does happen.
Honestly, I don't know what kind of insurance. Well, you can't carry. We didn't have to insure against the vehicle's destruction. I'm sure if we nicked it, there's a way to solve that problem that doesn't cost $30 million.
No, just $100,000.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
That would have been fine.
What kind of body shop does Bruce use?
You're talking about $50 million Ferraris here.
Okay.
You have to do it right. All right, wait. I've got to ask about Le Mans in 1966 because, if you're listening, when you go to this movie and you're a car guy, you're going to lose your mind at not just the sets, but the set dressing is it's like something you would find in a Goodwood memorabilia. Everything is perfection. You're looking at every angle and place on the screen, and
we went to a lot of trouble to do that.
Yeah, but what really impressed me with Le Mans in 1966, because that track has changed. It does not exist in its current state contemporary. So how do you approach Le Mans in 1966, given that it doesn't exist anymore?
Well, I can do the long version or the short version. I'll try and do the short version, which will inevitably be the medium-long version. Well, like you said, there is no track. Right, Spike. So I can't end the track. Let's talk about what makes Le Mans special for a second. Now, I'm starting to sound like a motorsports guy, aren't I?
Yeah, I know.
2 years working on this movie full time, and you get infected. What makes Le Mans special is it's one of the oldest races in the world. It was created at the dawn of the automobile. And as much as it's about who wins, it's much more about who survives, about which cars can actually race for 24 hours and stay running for 24 hours. And a lot of the attrition that happens in the race isn't about cars, quote, falling behind. It's about cars falling apart under the stress and demands of the race. The demands of the race are 8 miles of track of country road, basically a loop with a lot of turns and twists that is conventional French road for the other 360 days a year when that race isn't going on. And then the straightaway that runs past a grandstand, which was a kind of wonderful old-fashioned grandstand. Mm-hmm. None of that exists anymore. And at the same time, the track itself is legendary. There are the S's, the White House Corner, the Mulsanne Straight, the Dunlop Bridge. These are all either kind of landmarks and or specific kind of turns and twists in the road that require specific strategies and would adapt to some cars' strengths, and some cars would fall apart at different places. So we knew we had to, in some way, replicate these famous turns and twists, these landmarks along the road, and we knew that we couldn't do that in Le Mans, France, because, as you said, it just doesn't exist anymore.
Right,
it looks like
right.
the Meadowlands. It's this glory. It looks like the French airport. It's a giant modernist grandstand that holds probably 20 times more people than it did back then. So we did shoot in Le Mans, France. We shot in the village of Le Mans for the village. But when we got to having to reconstruct the track itself, we found an airport in Agua Dulce, California, where we built the grandstand. At least most of it, about a football field long section of it, and then used visual effects to extend it.
Is that still there?
No, it had to all go away.
Tore it down.
Why at an airport, you might ask, Spike?
Yes.
Well, to drive cars at in excess of 150 miles an hour past your grandstand, you need. I didn't even think about this. This is where until I learned this, making the movie with all the stunt guys and car coordinators. In order to drive 150 miles an hour past your camera in the pits and the grandstands, you obviously need running time for those drivers to be able to get up to speed, and then of course you need more straightaway for them to deaccelerate so they don't run into a wall at 150 miles an hour. So we found an airport in Agua Dulce, California, and we built the kind of main area that where the pits were, all the action in the pits with Matt Damon playing Carroll Shelby. Every time Christian pulls in, all of that action. Mm-hmm. Then we went to Atlanta, Georgia, where we scouted for twists and turns and country roads that would match the French countryside and match the exact characteristics of these twists and turns in the roads at Le Mans. Now, again, your challenges don't begin and end there, because you've got to find country roads in Georgia in which the residents on those country roads are okay with you shutting down the roads for a week on end and driving 200 miles an hour past their houses.
You just got the 3-minute signal. I don't mean to interrupt your story.
Yeah, they're going to
keep you there.
You can be scared of them, but I'm not scared of them.
But you're in 3 different locations.
Yeah.
Keeping track of cars in various degrees of use, right? And
so here's the bottom line, Spike. Every time you see any car make one lap around that track, you're actually seeing 6 different disparate locations in Atlanta, Georgia.
No kidding.
And 1 main location in Agua Dulce, California. And so every time, and you now have to figure out how complicated it was for us. We have all these period cars. They are driving in configurations, like who's ahead, who's in second, who's in third. It's either raining, it's a wet down, it's night, it's dawn, it's midday. We have to the cars are dirty on either a level 1 through 5, depending on how long they've been racing.
That you had this dirt scale to keep track of stuff.
Yeah, not only that, but when it rains, obviously the dirt scale, they go from a 4 back down to a 2. So you have to have, every time you're doing one of these sequences, you have to be coordinating all that stuff so it cuts together through the magic of cinema into one continuous race.
I have to ask you some questions because they're going to take you away from me. And,
Go, ask. And they can't actually take me unless I cooperate.
That's good. I love
I'm having fun here,
good.
Spike.
Okay, here are my questions. I have more questions for you. Did either Ford or Ferrari reach out to help shape the narrative?
They reached out with concern about how we were
depicting. What?
Well, I'm not giving you names, but
it's either Ford or Ferrari.
Well,
I know
with
Ferrari.
all these companies, you have giant marketing publicity divisions and people.
Do you know someone? I heard from one of the manufacturers.
You did? What did you hear? Tell me. Share the scuttlebutt.
They were curious. Have you seen it? How are we portrayed?
Yes, right. I mean, I think that I think the one.
Why were they nervous, though? I mean, this is history.
Well, there's a good reason. There's a good reason to be nervous in the sense that we're not making a promotional film for these companies. But where I think they end up coming off, all of them well in the movie, is that the fact that the movie doesn't feel like just a a bunch of promotional bullshit.
No,
is what makes the company look better.
Right.
Because you understand the real history of these companies, the good and the bad of it, what makes them real legacies and a part of our history, and not just some bullshit commercial, which they can make any day of the week. So the reality is, I think, especially for Ford, I think that the reality is, we tried to, but I think there was anxiety, and in the end, I didn't want to make the movie working with the publicity department.
Of course not.
Because then they'd have issues every 3 days.
They manage my Instagram posts a lot of times. Right. I will have a Ferrari and I'll mention the word Porsche, and I don't talk to Ferrari for a year. They won't call me. That's how sensitive they are.
They're too sensitive.
Wait.
Sensitive.
Now
they're all too sensitive.
CGI? Are we seeing CGI in this at all?
Not cars. I mean, there's a couple of things.
Because there's big Ferrari crashes and things. How do you shoot that?
We had reproductions and we crashed them.
And you do crash them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty vicious crash at one point.
Yeah, but it's not it's not a $30 million Ferrari.
No, but there's a human in there.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this is why there's such things as stunt guys. But we have all sorts of, where the computer stuff and visual effects comes in is there's rigs and harnesses and stuff. We just remove that. So we're shooting real cars, but that car may getting pulled on a rail into the other, meaning guys use the same engineering that goes in the cars goes now into modern stunts.
And with Matt and Christian, are you looking at the scenes that they might be driving in, and what kind of interference do you have from their representatives who are like, look, don't kill Matt Damon?
Yeah, they're both very smart. Neither of them wants to get hurt making a movie.
Right.
They've been doing this a while.
So they're not Tom Cruise in it. They're not like...
Well, Tom doesn't want to get hurt either, but the truth is that...
He doesn't?
No.
There's your news right there. No. Tom Cruise doesn't want to get hurt.
No one wants to get hurt. Everyone pushes it
That's
to
not
where
what
they...
Chris McQuarrie's telling me.
Okay, well, Chris is good at publicity. But the reality of it all is that the reality of it is this. There's scenes you have them driving. There's scenes you don't have them driving. But there's an awful lot of scenes where they're behind the wheel, but they're not driving. What I mean by that is we had this rig called the Biscuit, and they've used it on James Bond movies and other configurations have used it. I'm sure Chris used it on Mission. I know when I made a Tom Cruise movie and he was riding a motorcycle, we had scenes where we used a kind of configuration like this. The Biscuit, which is effectively that your actor, just like no one wants you to text and drive, no one wants you to act and drive, especially in excess of 100 miles an hour. So what we do is we have a replica of a GT40 where the actual drive and command of the car is either on the roof or offset to one of the rear, where the camera isn't going to look.
Right.
So that the camera can live in the car where the actor, pan out to the front hood, pan back to the driver in profile, look to the right, look to the left. You're not going to see any sign of another driver.
Right.
But we can send Christian or Matt on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, where we've got stunt drivers driving the period cars all around them, slotting in and around. They're overtaking them. This is all happening over 100 miles an hour, and we have an expert driver who's not having to act, who is just focused on completing the choreography of the car. And Matt or Christian. So,
do you have them do like the cartoony on that steering wheel?
Of course not. Of course not.
Do that now. Do a fake shift and signal.
I mean, these are good actors, Spike. And all you have to do is for once sit behind the wheel of your own car and rock the steering wheel to and fro, and realize your car starts going like an S across.
No, the guys are incredible. I mean, the movie was so thrilling. I mean, I could not believe. And you did talk about it at the screening, but I could not believe the running time of this movie. If you had asked me, I would have said this is 90 minutes, not a dot longer.
No, really, that's great. I love it.
It's 2:20, and it was such a thrill. How did you pull that up? Because me, of all people, complains about anything over 2 hours.
You should have seen the very exciting 3-hour and 15-minute version.
I would not have stood for it. But how did you do that? Because I really was tricked.
You're asking. It's like how did you make a movie? We cut, we edit, we cut, we ask every day. I had a great old teacher once who said, if it can go, it should go. So
you said length doesn't bore you, boredom bores you.
That's right.
The screening.
Yes, it's the truth. I mean, we even when the movie ends, we have to then go on living. What's boring is when our brains aren't involved.
Yes,
when we check out. So we try and avoid that.
You have to go. I just want to ask you one more question. Why Why does the name get changed overseas? Why do they change it to
Good
Le Mans
question.
66?
Well, the reality is that in some countries, like in the UK and I believe France as well, when you use a trademark name like Ford or Ferrari, you need their permission or for it to be in a title. So
you got
in America, that is not true because they're just considered historical names.
There you go. Simple answer.
Simple answer. Also, I think it's pretty clear that in Europe, people might know what Le Mans is more than, you call the movie Le Mans 66.
Right. And there it is.
You'd have a bunch of people walking around in New Jersey going, what's a Le Mans 66?
This is James Mangold, director of the fantastic movie Ford versus Ferrari, in theaters November 15th, you guys. I don't even have to tell you to go see it. I know you're going to see it, but you are going to absolutely love it.
Bring the family.
Bring the family. Erica loved it. Very nice to meet you, sir. I'm very impressed with you and what you've done. And come back.
I'll come back.
When
Not
you
every
think
movie
slow down,
I make involves vehiculars.
We're in Beverly Hills. I want to talk more about the movie and movie making in general.
That's good.
Thanks for listening to Spike's Car Radio. Download new episodes every Wednesday on the Podcast One app or subscribe now at Apple Podcasts or PodcastOne.com.
You know, we all have a to-do list. There's lots of stuff on it. You got to get your dry cleaning. You got to get your milk. Here's an idea. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance on your to-do list. And the good thing is you don't have to drop off or pick up anything. All you have to do is go to Geico.com. In 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance, extra money in your pocket. It may be the most rewarding thing you do today. Well, I'm pretty excited to be welcoming Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson to the Podcast One family. Listen as Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, pours his soul into conversations with fascinating minds, celebrities, and athletes, along with his cosmic millennial sidekick and former NFLer, Eben Britton. Kid Dynamite dives deep into the issues impacting us all today. This podcast will change the way you see the world. Check out the first 2 episodes featuring Evander Holyfield. Don't miss Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson every week on Apple Podcasts and Podcast One. All right, one other thing I just got to mention. We have a new Blip Shift T-shirt. You may have seen it. You may not have. It's perfect. It's just in time for the holidays. It's the Arrested Development shirt. It's 3 steering wheels from RS's, the evolution of the RS steering wheel for you Porsche nuts. I picked out the wheels. I ran them by Seinfeld. I ran them by Zuckerman. I think you'll recognize which wheels we used. Of course, we had to put a GT2 RS wheel in there. Of course, we had to put a 73 RS. And, we went back to the 550 RS. That's right. So there you go. It's an amazing shirt. Go to blipshift.com/Spike. On the front, you'll see the cool steering wheels. They're navy blue with gray. They're awesome. I picked these colors out based on the types of shirts I want to wear when I get up in the morning. And on the back, there's just a little Spike's Car Radio up on the back collar there. So check it out. They're only $20 a piece. I recommend going with a heavier shirt. The thin ones, unless you're in great shape, you're showing a little too much booby and a little too much stomach. So I go with the heavier ones. Go to blipshift.com and get our new T-shirt, Arrested Development. There's probably only 1 or 2 days left, so do it fast.